Hey, good morning, familia. Sid Fernandez, president of NAHREP Naples, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the first episode of Conversation with Cafecito. This was something that's been in the making since 2018. This show, guys, is, as you can see, not overly professional. The purpose of the show is really just to bring raw and realness to not only our mission, but to our community. This is a place for entrepreneurs to come in to share their stories, of struggle, both in their personal and their business lives. It's to share stories, not just of the struggle, but how they overcame that and how they were able to bottle those moments in their life to teach them how to overcome things later on in life. As like today in our first episode, first our first guest has been through a lot, and I think there's a lot of people that may have never heard a story like hers. So it's just amazing that she's actually in our backyard. She's a leader within our own organization, and for her to be able to come on and share these personal stories of hers, not only through not through surviving communism, surviving the Mariel Boatlift, surviving a recession, and obviously now all of us surviving a pandemic. I think it's important for us to share stories. Guys, I know a lot of us have gone through personal things. I know a lot of us have gone through things that make us feel inferior or they make us feel like we're not good enough. But I'm here to tell you that even through my personal experiences, those moments that we've gone through don't bring us down unless we allow them to. They should be something that propel us. They should be things that connect us to others. And it allows us to be the leaders that our community needs. And this is why Conversation with Cafecito has become what it is. And we hope to share more stories. So if you're an entrepreneur out there, whether you're in Naples, whether you're in New York, which our next episode, we have 2 members of NAHREP chapters way north up in New York, or anywhere else. We have people coming from Puerto Rico shortly thereafter. So this is really just a conversation with, obviously, Cafecito. Before we kick off and before we get Lisset Franco on today, I'd also like to say a big thank you to everyone who watched our webinar this Tuesday. It obviously means a great deal to us that you guys show as much support as you guys do. We've had viewership across the board, across the nation. And it's because of what you guys do, and it's because of your guys' love and passion for what it is that we do, that we continue to move forward with our mission. And we love to share it more. And again, we look forward to pushing this mission even more in the future. So guys, as Lissette's getting prepared to getting into StreamYard, let's go over some things that are coming in the future just so we can kind of burn some time. Next week, guys, will be episode 2 of Conversation with Cafecito next Friday at 8 o'clock in the morning. We'll be having 2 members and 2 realtors from New York. Both Anthony Fernandez and David Barriga are both actually vice presidents of 2 separate chapters in New York, one from Queens and one from South Queens. Obviously, New York, as many of us know, has been one of the hardest hit areas in the United States. And, there's a lot of things that have been thrown, for realtors out there. There's been a lot of things just thrown around, a lot of changes to be made. They were actually locked down, unlike down here in Southwest Florida, where we were kind of essential. So to get their side of the story, not only their business side, but also some of the things that they went through personally in New York as they grew up, I think is going to be imperative for all of us. And I think you guys will take a lot of little tidbits away. And so, again, we're excited to continue to share that. Also, next week, we have another sponsor spotlight next Wednesday, and we have New American Funding coming in, who's one of our silver sponsors for this year. Once again, guys, like we mentioned this past week, sponsorship is huge for us, not just because the money rolls in, but that support coming from these bigger corporations that show the support of this type of mission just legitimizes what we're doing in our communities. So as we continue to make this mission more and more vibrant, as we continue to push forward through these different times, if you have an interest of coming on board, whether it's a sponsor, a member, or someone who wants to provide value, we look forward to that. So let's just see where Lisset is really quick. I'm telling you, ponte las pilas. She's coming on. All this virtual stuff, sometimes we have stumbles. Sometimes we have these little moments where it's like, oh my God, I didn't do this. I'm not on. I didn't get my hair done. The shine. What happens? But, I've seen a lot of guys, a lot of people out there obviously commenting through everything. We'd love to get your ideas. We'd love to get your thoughts on what's going on. What are the type of things that have allowed you to overcome what we're currently going through? What are things in your business that maybe you had pre-planned to make changes to, or maybe you made changes during this time that you never had planned? We'd love to hear that, and, especially myself. I think that it's intriguing what we find when people go through very strenuous times, when they go through times of testing. And I think it's important for us to really kind of get an understanding of that and how react in situations like this. Stresses through this current pandemic, whether it be business, whether it be things coming to a halt, whether it's the fear of the virus itself, or as many of the parents on here know, the dreaded, 40,000 tabs open on online because we didn't get the one tab correct, and now we're getting emails from our teachers. These have been some really trying times for a lot of us, and I know a lot of us have gone a little bit crazy, but it's okay to have gone crazy. I hope that you're not looking at yourself in the mirror as like, oh my God, guys, this is a time of testing, and again, you're gonna find that you guys are better prepared than you can imagine. Oh, see, technical difficulties on the laptop. So share those stories with us. Come on our page, DM me personally. We'd love to hear more about it. All right. Before as she's getting settled into the computer and trying to get those technical difficulties, I'll share something about what's happened with us. I think many of you guys have watched the video. My wife and I contracted the virus right at the beginning of all this. I think, thinking back, I think it was right around the time that they were just shutting down schools. The way we contracted it, again, just like many of us who have had it, it was kind of not known. It was someone who had it, didn't know they had it. They found out they had it. Now we have it. And it's funny how there was an ease. As a military guy, you're pumped with so many different, antibodies and shots and vaccines. For me, it was more so like, I think COVID's going to come in and just kind of like, I don't even want to be in here somehow. But, there was definitely some uncertainty. But it was really, those symptoms weren't even the worst part, but the pandemic side of it, or the quarantine side of it, where you're kind of locked up, kind of like a caged animal. That to me was probably the worst part. I think the mental side of it, it created, I guess, a little bit of despair, maybe. I'm not going to say it was full-blown depression, but I can definitely tell you, for someone who's dealt with depression in his past, I can definitely tell you, you're definitely skirting that line. And to have to sit on a couch and not want to get up was definitely tough. That sentiment that you just didn't want to get up out of the couch. And I was on the couch for, I would say, about a week and some change. But it luckily enough, since I've dealt with that before, I've dealt with those feelings. I've dealt with that sense of, like, let's say, darkness and being lost. I knew that it needed to take an extreme moment for myself, or an extreme decision, to get out of extreme moment. So if that's something that you're currently going through, or you have gone through, and maybe you're still currently going through and you haven't really shaken it, take a moment, grab your keys, and just get the heck out and just go walking. Shut everything out, take in some sun, take in nature, and just listen to what the good Lord has literally presented us around us. It's amazing what nature will do for us, and just kind of getting away from the sounds, getting away from our own minds. Because we all know that our mind can be our biggest ally, but it can also be our biggest enemy. It looks like we have a comment over here. Good morning, Kat. How are you? So if you're currently going through that, because of whether you've contracted it or not, maybe it's because of business, maybe it's just because being home all the time, maybe having to be a parent and being a teacher and being an entrepreneur, whatever it may be, take a moment for yourself and don't feel bad for it. Oh, look at that. She even put a little cafecito cup on the side. Well, cheers, baby. Do that. Take a moment, take that extreme moment, and get yourself out of the house. Get yourself out of your own head. Oh, looks like we have Lisset Franco coming on. I'm waiting for her video to show up. Mira eso. And without further ado, guys, I am blessed to bring on Miss Lisset Franco, as she finally got the technical difficulties out of the way. Good morning, Lisset.
Good morning. I'm so sorry.
It's all good. Don't even worry about it. Hey, eso pasa. It happens.
Remember that I mentioned that I have my computer at home. Can you hear me?
It's actually my computer that's not that loud. So good morning.
Morning. So my computer at home, I actually don't have a computer. I have like a TV, and so I have a big TV. I work from home. So I had to put everything on my laptop to be able to speak to you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have a camera. So it was a little, I guess, loop to be able to get technology up and running.
It happens. Maybe the computer just needed a cafecito too. That's all it was.
Exactly. There you go.
That's all it was. So we kicked off the show this morning, and I just talked a little bit about what this show was about, and it was really about storytelling. It's about sharing moments in our lives that kind of prepared us for moments kind of like what we're currently in. We want to share stories of struggles, but not to delve us deeper into depression and to all. We wanted to share those stories, A, to connect, but B, we wanted to share that those things can be the fuel that propels us to overcome and adapt situations like today. And obviously your history is extremely deep, and being that you're Cuban American, being that you immigrated from another country, surviving communism at such an early age, I think it's a really important story to tell, because I think a lot of people have never heard it from someone that experienced it. So the way I'd like to kick this off is, tell us a little bit about, living in Cuba during the communist times, and how your family not only overcame the time that they were there, but obviously going through the Mariel Boatlift, because I think it's such an interesting story. Someone who's Cuban American, I just love stories like this because it just connects me to my culture. So go right ahead and tell people about that.
Actually, we were talking yesterday about the fact that this year, we came in June. I don't remember the day, June 1980. So this year in June will be 40 years that we actually made our way over here. And I want to thank my aunt for actually getting on that boat and getting us. And we're blessed that she had the courage to do that and go get all of us. So I was only 10 when we came. So there, now you have my age. I was only 10, but I remember vividly what we went through. It was pretty crazy. We were actually 10 days traveling throughout. 7 days sleeping on the floor, 3 days sleeping in a tent. But living in Cuba for us, we remember everything we went through. We remember, I remember I actually was in a school of piano. We actually was in a conservatory. And within that conservatory, we played piano, we played, we were in an orchestra, me and my brother. So I remember our teacher, when they found out she was leaving, they actually started telling us to go and throw eggs at her and throw bricks. I'm like, Mom, I don't feel comfortable doing that. I don't want to do that. So she's like, okay, then just stay behind and come home. So, little things like that you don't forget. But as a kid, I remember us like playing around, going throughout like the streets and just playing cards, you name it. We had a great childhood in that sense. But then when we came here, it was totally different. It was like, no, you can't go out, things are different. They'll steal the kids. And we were so afraid. And even in a car, I remember driving around in a car and I would just fall asleep because I wasn't used to being in a car, driving around. And I remember my mother working at a factory when we came. And I remember knowing exactly how much she made. And we lived in Hialeah. We moved to Miami Beach, and then we moved to Hialeah. But even though we lived in Miami Beach, we worked in Hialeah at a factory. So she had to, she would go get me and get all the stuff. We used to go in Tropical Supermarket, which I still remember the name. And we used to go to that supermarket, and she used to have $100 and something. And I'm like, Mom, how much you have? And I had just turned 11. Okay, how much you have? We count it. We put the stuff, we ran it in the car. And then if we were over, I was already counting. I was 11 and I was counting to make sure we wouldn't go over, because it was very embarrassing when we had to pay that we didn't have enough money to pay. So I was like, Mom, let's take that off and let's take this off. And we would just like do the numbers before we actually had to go pay. Or like another time, I remember we had an old beat up car. I don't remember, it was a Chevy, or it was all blue. It was a mess. It was raining that day. It was my father, my brother, my mom, and I that we went shopping that day. And all of a sudden, we ran inside because it was raining, and we just went in a rush. And through the microphone, they start saying, "There's a car outside with the lights on. It's blue. It's stained. it's got all these spots, and we're like, oh shit, that's our car. I'm not going out there. And it was funny, but those are the little things that we lived through that we still remember. You know, we moved a whole entire year to Texas, and that was tough. It was very cold. We were not used to it, but we had to do that in order to accelerate our residency. So my brother can come to this country because he was actually left behind. My brother was 15 at the time, and they didn't allow him to come with us. So he was the only one that actually had to go back. My grandmother stayed with him. We were all ready to go, and my grandmother's like, no, stay with him. So he could, basically stay. And then we all left. It was really hard. I mean, that was kind of the few times that I saw my mom ever cry because it was really, really hard for her. It was tough. We just didn't know when we were going to be able to see him again.
And for those who are just joining us, we're welcome to Conversation Cafecito. I'm here with Lisset Franco. She's sharing her stories of her past, leaving Cuba at a very young age, and sharing the struggles that she went through, which propelled her to have the business that she does today. It's always incredible to me. I think that it's these types of stories kind of humble us, they kind of ground many of us, and because I think again we get very complacent. We live in a country that though we've had our highs and lows, we're still very blessed to be in a country where you can still strive to achieve those dreams. And of course, what you went through, that experience had to have molded you again to propel you. I mean, leaving a country, coming to Hialeah, which is a whole other country, for those who don't know Hialeah, and then going from there and then going to Texas, a whole other country, literally the size and the way that they live life. And to have to make a decision to leave your son behind, and you hear those stories a lot. For those who don't understand the Cuban culture, you hear that all the time. There were family members that got left behind. My grandfather actually first came to the States, left my mother, my uncle, my grandmother behind because, my grandfather was basically threatened with death, and he had to leave. And that story seems to be alike with a lot of people that have come from Cuba. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. So tell me how you were able to harness that and then go into basically the workforce and then convert yourself into an entrepreneur. Tell us the stages of that.
Right. So, I mean, my father's always been an entrepreneur. I remember, even my grandmother. I remember my dad making cakes at home and we would sell it. Little things that we would do to survive, I guess. But as I came here, graduated high school, went to college, and got myself a job like everybody else. But throughout, I mean, I went from being the receptionist to going to the operations department at the bank. It was actually a Swiss bank at the day. We were doing private banking. And from there, I went through the marketing because I wanted to be from day one in the marketing department because I knew that's where the money was. If you're in sales, you're going to make the money. So I wanted to be in the marketing department, the assistant of the top producer there because I wanted to learn. So I had that growth mindset that I'm not going to be complacent. I'm going to grow and I'm going to get where I need to get. So I started out, I'm sorry about that. So I started out and I think it was 1990. I got married in 94. So in 1992, I started in the bank. And by the time I got married, I was already in the marketing department. I was in the back. And I would work, and we actually had customers from Brazil, Chile, Argentina, and we would just take care of those accounts. From there, I switched to another bank, and at that point, I took the leap of faith and say, okay, I'm afraid, I don't know what I'm doing, but they were going to make me the head of the stock market department, the leading stock market department person. And I was like, God, what am I doing? Here's a girl from Hialeah that just came from Cuba, like 8 years ago. What the heck am I doing? I was in a room with a bunch of Swiss that spoke 10 languages. And I was like, what am I doing here? But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to move forward. And long story short, my daughter was born in 2000. By the time my son, I got pregnant with my son, I said, okay, this is not what I want. Somehow those last few years, once I had already accomplished where I wanted to be, there was something about it that I wasn't happy. I knew, that I could do more. And they would tell me, sell this product, and I would sell it in 3 days, and I would just beat everybody up. And I just didn't want to be there. There was a point that once you become a mother, I guess things change. And I just didn't want to do that anymore. And one day I told Jose, I said, listen, I don't know what we're going to do, but I don't want to do this anymore. I want to change careers. I'm not happy. I was just miserable. So we decided to come to Naples. My dad and my mom were already here. They lived in the States, they owned a lot. They had already built a house, and they were like, come, come, come. And I'm like, nah, yo no voy para ese monte. That was like, to me, that was like the end of the world. I'm not going there. I love the city. I don't want to go there. So we ended up saying, okay, let's do this. We sold everything then. We sold the house. I let go my job that, I made very good money. Jose left his job and we basically came naked here. We started from scratch all over again. And I could tell you that, and then we decided, okay, what am I going to do? My dad at the time was a realtor. He's like, why don't you just get into real estate and you could help me and we can, do stuff together. So I got my license, and I got my license at the, I think, end of '05. So we were about to hit the peak, and I didn't know. So '06 comes along, and that's when I started selling real estate. And my dad and Jose, we will build houses, and we will sell them too. And we were back in the days, we were still investors. We will get into the game. And at that point, we said, okay, there's something going on. And that's when we saw that there was something coming, and then the market crashed in '07. And I kind of lived through that. But I had just gotten my license, so I had to pivot and adjust there. Okay, where am I headed? What do I have to do? So I saw the short sales were the answers, and I said, okay, let me start doing the short sales, and that's how I survived. And now here we are again, trying to pivot and adjust again with this market.
So let me ask you this, because that's a great segue. For those who are joining us now, we're sitting here. This is Conversation with Cafecito, episode 1. We're here with Lisset Franco. We're just talking about the topic of pivoting right now with her business and what she went through the recession and how that really plays into what we're currently going through now. So for those that are watching, because you had to pivot, and luckily you kind of did it in early. It's like you had cemented yourself in the industry and then had to make a serious pivot. But even so, someone being new to this industry, being still pivoting is still kind of like, oh my God, do I do this? Do I go back to salary? So could you tell us your mindset when it came down to, I need to make a pivot? Because I think there are a lot of people that know they have to do it, but it's taking that first step to making that pivot and that choice that I think people get hung up on. So can you talk to us about what your mindset was right when you were about to make it?
There was no choice going back. I wasn't going back to salary. So it burned the ships. Burn the chips. And if you don't do it, you're not going to do it. So to me, there was no other way. I mean, my daughter was 4, David was 1. So to me, it was, okay, how am I going to do this to be able to be in the lives of my kids? I mean, I remember having a minivan, and everybody knows me for many, many years. I had a small Toyota minivan, and I would put my kids in the back, put the TV on, and off we go. And I would go to houses, and I would take the kids with me. And for those that don't want to you still have to work. So I think it's just an adjustment and a mindset that you do what you're going to do and just get it done.
Oh, you stopped right when I took a swig of water. Thank you. I tell you one thing, that statement where it's not a choice, I think it should ring true to a lot of the entrepreneurs that get to that moment. And by the way, every single entrepreneur has to happen. The world evolves, industries evolve. I mean, we're seeing companies that we've come to know. I mean, Nordstrom's closing down. You're seeing companies that we've known for the last 40 years as staples in malls, staples in communities, are going to crap. So what makes you think that those big companies are going through what they're going through, and that the smaller entrepreneurs, the smaller businesses, the more local businesses aren't going to do the same? If you don't pivot, if you can't adapt, you're going to die in business. Obviously, not personally. That's actually really, really awesome. So obviously one of the big things about this show is connecting your story, obviously, with the NAHREP. And we've talked about it, we've discussed it, we've gone to multiple events with NAHREP. What is one or maybe two of those disciplines that you can say really means a great deal to you, and maybe share another little story that connects you to those disciplines?
And I would have to say, number one will be, being, in the life of your family and and your kids. To me, that's huge, because being part. What do you have if you work really, really hard and you're not part of your kid's life and your family's life. And that's huge because you do it for your family, but if you're not going to be part of it and you're going to miss it all, you're basically not being part of that. I mean, you're going to miss everything. So to me, it was like what I told you. I had my kids in my back and my van, and we were like hustling and we were doing it together. And that to me was extremely important. To be able to be part of my kids' family, the lives of my kids and my family, to be part of that. And to me, that was huge. And sometimes people get too busy and making the money and doing the business that they forget about the family. So I mean, yes, it is. We want to make it, but we also want to be. We want to be able to have a legacy at the end that when we made that the kids remember how hard we worked, but we were also part of their lives, and that's huge.
That's something that I've definitely struggled with. So it's a really good topic to hit. It's something I've struggled with, having been gone a lot, being deployed a lot, being away working. Sometimes we get, me as a man, there's like a stress level, and I guess in the back of our heads, because what the prototypical man when you were being raised. I mean, my grandfather would wake up every single day at 3:30 to go work. He worked Winn-Dixie from the moment he got into the States. He started off as like a rastra, and then he grew his way up to through the ranks in Winn-Dixie. There's always a stress level as a man deep inside your head that you have to work, and that's your job. And I think that there's an evolution that's happened. I think that everyone has the ability, whether you're a woman, whether you're a man, and anything in between, to be able to earn your keep. But the important factor of having, to me, which is the mother, which to me has always been the heart and a little bit of the soul of a child, but there's an importance to the firmness of the father figure. And I can definitely see the evolution from my own kids, having been around them obviously a little bit more consistently in these last couple of years. And it really has cemented the importance of being around them and being family oriented. So that's honestly fantastic. So we're about 3 minutes out from ending episode 1. If there's something that you can tell the entrepreneur that's watching or that will be watching, what is one tidbit of information or a tip that you can leave them that can make them feel at ease when they're about to make that pivot point in their life or business?
I would say, I mean, the industry is changing, and no matter what, I think everything is changing, and you need to learn how to pivot and adjust. And we hear that all the time, and you're like, okay, how do I pivot? Just, you have to adjust. Even when Blockbuster back in the days was selling, was renting movies, and now we had Netflix. And I remember when my kids came to me and said, Mom, it's $7 a month, $8 a month. I'm like, what do you want that stuff for? So, and I went ahead and did it. And now I know that I mean, little by little it happens. You don't really see when it happens, but it happens. So you need to learn how to pivot and adjust, because at the end, if you don't, you're going to be left behind. So in anything you do, I believe that you have to pivot and adjust. Big companies do it, and we're going to feed it more on a local level through our small businesses. And we are small businesses, and if we don't pivot and adjust, we're going to actually miss the boat. So we got to learn how to do that.
It's funny how we ended this conversation on a boat when we started with a boat. So it's like perfect. It was like a perfect segue. Absolutely perfect. Yeah. For all the Cubans out there, they're like, see, what? See.
You have to, yeah.
Lisset, thank you again for being on. Obviously, we've been discussing this for so long, and it's actually really exciting to launch it. And I think this is going to be an immense value to people. And just again, thank you for sharing. Thank you for having that ability. And our hope is that your story and your willingness to share it implores others to share their story as well. I think not only is it therapeutic, but I think it really is a benefit to everybody in the community. So, thank you again. Have a wonderful day. And Nosotros Somos, Mama. Thank you so much for being here.
Nosotros Somos.
Best, Mama.
Bye.
So, guys, I want to thank you guys again for being here. This is a big deal for us, and I think it's a big deal for our communities. What we hope is that this sparks change in your life. May it spark something deeper within yourself. May it ignite a passion, and may it shake off the fear that you may have in adapting to what we're currently going through and what's to come. Because we all know life is a curveball machine, and it's going to throw them at you. So it's important for us to be properly prepared, but more importantly, it's important for us to connect with others who have gone through things. So, guys, on the way out, we look forward to having you guys again next week and in our futures. Until then, continue to feed your passions, guys. Continue to strive for something greater because there's greatness within all of you. And Nosotros Somos. Take care, guys.